What the hell is going on here?
Not a clue. But honestly, all you need to know is that this place will eat you alive if you aren't careful.
I've been through a lot worse.
Hopefully you'll be able to find a way out of this station. Now, you'll need this.
If you say so.
And don't make my mistake. If you see one of those things, uniform or not, you do not hesitate. You take it out. Or you run. Got it?
I know. It's called zombie. You're crocked, aren't you?
Resident Evil 2 and Metal Gear Solid, both tension-filled action games which definitively defined their respective genres back on the original PlayStation. One depicts the story of Leon Kennedy, a rookie police officer navigating the zombie-infested Raccoon City police station, uncovering a mystery of corporate greed and becoming a true survivor alongside Claire Redfield. The other sees Solid Snake, a legendary war hero infiltrating the enemy-occupied military research facility on Shadow Moses Island, now controlled by rogue super soldiers, as well finding himself at the center of a grand conspiracy. But what if the roles were reversed? What if with all of his training and experience, Solid Snake was instead sent into Raccoon City on a mission to contain and curtail this zombie plague? While his skills against hyper-trained operators are well observed, could he just as easily react and adapt to hordes of the undead, bizarre genetic mutations, all while decoding the unorthodox puzzles and labyrinths which Leon conquered? In the spirit of Resident Evil Requiem returning us to that city without hope, and Snake crossing over into Rainbow Six, could Solid Snake survive the Raccoon City incident? To set the stage, the exact events of RE2 are hard to specify. Multiple scenarios, reimaginings, and remakes all seem to coexist in the eyes of Capcom. I'll mostly lean on the more recent depiction, but draw from other sources to help paint a broader picture. For Snake, he'll have the bulk of his canon skills and history, which is very thoroughly detailed in my video all about Snake's abilities if you want to learn more. Also, thanks to EsselleJay's mod for helping to visualize this. If the survivors of Raccoon City can handle zombies, then they can respect the face of a true hero no matter the resolution when they see one. As we discover in RE2, Ada Wong is as well a mercenary who'd received intel of an investigative reporter named Ben Bertolucci, who obtained information on the G virus and even interviewed the scientist that unintentionally helped engineer the spread of the infection, with Ben's last known location being at the Raccoon City police station. For the sake of this hypothetical, Snake's own sources are also chasing this lead, as his post-MGS1 mission was to search for and destroy superweapons. This depiction of the hero is basically almost always used for crossovers, so I think it's fitting here. As for Snake's insertion method, he pretty obviously wouldn't be driving into the gas station late for work like Leon.
I need a drink.
We see other armed forces infiltrate and exfiltrate via helicopter at various points, and if Snake isn't already well equipped, we know based on the Darkside Chronicles retelling that Kendo's gun store right next door was stocked with various weapons at least earlier on in the outbreak. By now, Snake might have infinite ammo as well. Regardless, he would have to navigate through a horde to enter the police station. Zombies in this franchise pose an interesting threat, as they clearly showcase at least mild superhuman strength. After all, the virus was engineered as a military weapon to create practically invulnerable soldiers, shown capable of withstanding a full-speed semi-truck collision without seemingly any significant broken bones or brain damage. However, a good headshot is still enough to take down at least the most common infected.
Don't shoot!
Look out. I'll cover you.
Still, this city has already fallen, with both the police and even military forces being majorly overwhelmed, which is bizarre, as it seems like the concept of zombies is a familiar one in this universe. Unlike the Walking Dead show, where an undead infection has no basis in pop culture, justifying how the armed forces were seemingly caught off guard. This either helps to support the fact that Resident Evil zombies are more formidable than the average undead across fiction, or it's just a convenience of the narrative. All the same, Snake is a master marksman capable of outmatching ricochet geniuses who can bounce bullets around corners to take out elite forces. So a few headshots bobbing and weaving find Snake seemingly safe inside the station's interior. Some might think that without Leon, the game's other hero Claire may have never even entered the city, but other interpretations show her arriving just fine via her bike. So imagine her own scenario happening in the background. Snake would then investigate his immediate surroundings, looking for any survivors, as like Leon, Snake is a hero with a sense of justice, and he knows the police are his best bet for finding Ben. Checking the computer, he'd be led to the east hallway where an officer is being attacked. This terminal as well provides a basic map of this floor, with Snake being a genius and master of infiltration, he'd likely memorize the layout. Snake would find the struggling officer after hearing his shouts. Whether he manages to save him or not, as his lifting talents far surpass Leon's, certainly at this point, he'd obtain Elliot's notebook with sketches of various medallions and statues acting as keys to exit the station. If he did save Elliot, he'd lead him back to Marvin and likely ask them to stay put and watch each other's backs. That he'd send help for them when the mission's complete. Maybe Snake helps these two guys escape already, a minor side quest if his allies can send another chopper. But this would be mostly inconsequential. Maybe they'd become his little codec crew, radioing in with guidance if he needs help navigating the station, which Marvin does do at least a couple times in the actual game. They'd probably inform Snake as to Ben's location in the station's holding cells, which would mirror Leon's canon path. Regardless, Snake would hunt for these medallions as signs of a more enhanced undead raises the stakes. Careful as to sneak around, being the greatest stealth operative of all time, bypassing the senses of other elite soldiers, some even sporting superhuman senses. Snake would either strategically cull the halls of zombies or avoid them entirely. By now, he too would already have access to the litany of weapons lying around, such as ammo, grenades, and healing items in the form of the various herbs or med spray. Now, as unlikely as it is, as Snake is a master martial artist, what would happen if he got unlucky, if he got bit? After all, in Metal Gear Solid 5, we see similar zombie-type enemies, with the protag of that game resisting the transformation, both via the air and bites. Snake is a genetically enhanced super soldier by comparison, however the enemies in 5 are actually more akin to the parasites seen in Resident Evil 4, rather than the DNA-altering virus afflicting Raccoon City. However, in the actual lore of the Resident Evil series, the medicinal effects of these herbs are well observed, with the series creators even noting how instrumental they are in preventing the game's heroes from infection. So if Snake somehow manages to be bitten, he has a backup, with dozens of these herbs strewn around the station and later environments. The fact that the elite of Snake's universe also have some experience dealing with zombie-like enemies, and that he has inherited that training, gives him an advantage going forward. It's safe to say though, either from his initial preparation or raiding Kendo's gun shop, Snake is already better equipped than Leon, who stumbled in with no idea what he was in for. So notes left around providing hints for gun safes won't immediately grab his attention. There is a map within reach though if you still doubt his navigation abilities. Around now is when Marvin, who probably stayed behind anyway as he knew his time was up, informed Snake about Claire's location. Whether he's already run into her or not, he would still care about the safety of a civilian and meet up with her after a helicopter crashes into the building. Now, I doubt this fence would keep this super soldier from helping her. Snake punched down a mildly damaged wall in the very first game, with his foes denting the sides of warships with strikes, which would be pretty wild for Claire to witness. The super elite freak just tearing down this metal gate. Whether that happens or not, she'd survive well enough on her own, otherwise this would really become like Dark Side Chronicles, where the two team up the rest of the way. Still, the first two of these medallions would be easy enough to get, just basic puzzles with their solutions in Elliot's journal or nearby. Steam would attempt to block his path unless he finds a handle. Even as a dying old man, Snake walked for 3 minutes in a literal giant microwave with his bare face exposed. His mentor, who he was cloned from, too survived multiple lightning blasts, so Snake could just walk right through based on his feats. However, around here during his exploration, Snake would encounter his first evolved form of the virus's hosts, a licker. Much deadlier than a standard zombie, being a step up from the already evolved Crimson Head, who could burst apart doors into splinters. Lickers sport enhanced hearing and razor-sharp claws shown slashing into concrete walls. They are also likely the cause for the bent bars seen around the police station. Apparently, they are master fighters per the official guidebooks, but they are not subtle. Snake, already being cautious and sporting a pretty much sixth sense, would hear the licker chomping down on a zombie and act accordingly. There are various instances where these monsters are taken down by gunfire, however Snake could sneak past it in typical fashion. Their senses, having adapted to their lack of eyes, are just vaguely heightened compared to Snake's own or those of enemies he's bested in his own series. His predecessor, whom he surpassed and defeated, could sneak up on and outdo a master sniper with a literal extrasensory connection to their forest battlefield. Even rather basic forces decades before Snake's prime had to master the ability to focus and detect opponents and their weapons from great distances away. According to the MGS3 remake, which is officially set in the same world as the original. Making his way either through or around the lickers, Snake would eventually find the means to detonate the C4, revealing the final medallion, where he'd part ways with Marvin if he wasn't airlifted to safety a while ago. Descending towards this boiler room or something, Snake would encounter Dr. William Birkin after exposing himself to the G-Virus in a last attempt to keep his research from being taken. This is his first form, which may already be greater than the Tyrant final boss from the first Resident Evil game, who was shown capable of smashing giant holes in ceilings and deflecting rockets. Based on calculations, this would put the force of Birkin's attacks within the range of about 0.02 tons of TNT and his reaction speed at Mach 1.8. Gray Fox, who Snake outdoes in hand-to-hand, managed to withstand a Metal Gear exploding on top of him. These mechs are well beyond standard tanks, with armor decades prior to this Metal Gear's construction being capable of surviving a nuclear war. Even if this Metal Gear was as durable as a normal plane, which is disgusting downplay, Gray Fox's feat would be over 160 times more impressive than what the Tyrant or Birkin can endure. And based on MGS3, Snake can dodge lightning, which is 854 times faster than a rocket. Meaning that, unironically, Snake could just blitz and one-shot Birkin with a single punch. Even that aside, Leon was able to fend him off by attacking his obvious giant eye weak point. With Snake being a master strategist, he too could do so. Birkin continues to mutate in RE2 even after being defeated, eventually becoming a giant blob which has to be totally destroyed by a massive fireball. So even if Snake uppercut him so hard he splattered against the wall, the outcome would probably be the same. With Snake eventually Snake Eatering up the ladder into the parking garage where he'd face a zombie dog. Snake is a musher and loves to dog sled, so he'd kick this thing aside with a heavy heart before running into Ada Wong.
Surprised you made it this far.
Who are you?
Sorry, that information's classified.
Where are you going?
Do yourself a favor. Stop asking questions and get the hell out of here.
Questions?
This is where things get really interesting. Snake is supremely observant, noticing the slightest details, and is as well versed in all military or federal customs, at one time being a CIA agent himself. So, Ada's attempt to pose as an FBI officer as she did with Leon isn't going to fly here. Snake would immediately see her for the mercenary she is, being the best of the best himself. Ada could also tell, based on Snake's gear, that he's not a rookie cop who can be manipulated. So it's not unlikely that the two would come to blows right away, as they are after the same goal. Ada wants to secure the G-Virus for her benefactor, and Snake would want to make sure it can't cause any more harm. If it wasn't clear already based on that Birkin comparison, Ada isn't walking away from that. Even in terms of sheer hand-to-hand, being the most skilled soldier ever in his universe, Snake's in a class above martial arts masters with inestimable knowledge. Fighters that can sense your next move, who create multiple new martial arts or fighting methods entirely. Ada is no slouch, assuming she didn't train between RE2 and 4, which she honestly probably did, as she is confident she can beat Krauser, who is a master fighter skilled in every weapon and combat art, the most elite in the Resident Evil universe, but Snake is just on another level. There is another path though, as Ada is susceptible to Leon's boyish innocence, his pure heart, with Snake having a genuinely legendary aura, inspiring fear in his enemies and hope in his allies. He inherited his father's charismatic ability to turn an enemy into a friend even after defeating them, with his entire army being mostly formed of his former enemies that he bested and recruited in the field. Ada does provide Leon with great assistance after warming up to him, and to be honest, I think she might do so even more with the legendary hero. Even if he just judo tossed her and let her live, there's really not much she could do to slow Snake down. So he would finally make contact with Ben, who would plead to be released from his cell.
I don't believe it. A real human. Hello, human.
I want the lies to end now.
It's coming.
Good luck doesn't last forever.
Come on, don't be an asshole. Okay, you need this. Just give me the fuck.
Stop yelling. I can't concentrate. Disgusting.
It's just me. So you can put that thing away.
I tried to open the door, but no dice.
I told you to get out of here. You wouldn't want to end up like Ben, would you?
I'm gonna puke.
Now, unless Snake just bends these bars apart, which honestly he could, he'd deal with more zombie dogs before the upgraded tyrant Mr. X attacks Ben in his cell. Really, all X has going for him is still just being stronger compared to the first tyrant, but assuming he manages to kill Ben and run off like he apparently does in the real RE2, Snake would still find Ben's taped interview detailing a giant sinkhole leading to an underground umbrella facility. If Snake saved Ben, maybe he'd have more specific directions, but I doubt he'd keep him in the field. Add him to the Codec crew. Mr. X would then attack Snake directly. Funny comparison, but X is clearly inspired by the T-800 Terminator, with his coat and hat serving as a similar means of urban infiltration akin to Arnold's synthetic skin. Metal Gear had its own Terminator-inspired androids, impervious to all but rockets, very much like Mr. X. So this might not be such a foreign foe to Snake. There's still that far over 160 times strength gap though, so X is kicked aside without Ada's help. Like Birkin though, X has a healing factor, so maybe he could recover. Whether Ada is on his side or not, Snake might make a return trip to Kendo to restock before going down into the sewer next door, which matches Ben's description very conveniently. Going down the few unblocked tunnels would have Snake face the giant sewer gator, which he should easily be able to outrun and blow up like Leon. In MGS2, Snake swam and caught up to a Metal Gear Ray, an amphibious mech designed by the Marines, put a tracker on it, swam back to the New York City shore, then ran to Federal Hall, all in the time it took for another character to have a sword fight. He could probably also just uppercut the gator. It's hard to get lost down here. There's really only one path to take, leading Snake face to face with Annette Birkin, the wife of William, who as well helped create the G-Virus. virus. She'd open fire at Snake, however, unlike Leon, Snake has walked off high-caliber sniper rounds without blinking and can dodge bullets outright. But for the fun of it, let's assume she ends up on the other side of this giant door, the strongest force in fiction. By now, there aren't many threats or challenges Snake hasn't already come across. Some of these puzzles are downright brain-dead button mashers. He'd scour the sewer, take out zombies, lesser G adults than Birkin, maybe find a nifty flamethrower, before fighting Birkin's vaguely more powerful second form, which plays out mostly the same as the actual game. In the real game, Ada uses this wristband she acquired before to lead Leon onto the train, taking them to Umbrella's Nest laboratory. So if Snake recruited Ada earlier, the same thing plays out. If he caught up to Annette earlier, like I said, he'd probably interrogate her for info and confiscate her ID. Otherwise, I don't know, he rips the train door off its hinges and rides it anyway. Or runs along the tracks. He's getting to that lab somehow. Because someone's going to ask, Snake is a flirt, and it's in his DNA to fall for an enemy Chinese spy, but let's not get too fanficky here. There's really only zombies, lickers, and plant monsters to deal with while Snake upgrades his employee badge to get higher clearance. Rudimentary memorization and backtracking leads him straight to the G-Virus. Birkin would return and further mutate before Snake downs him again. Unlike Leon, Ada wouldn't even think to betray Snake, at least not like this, as she knows she's not winning and would likely end up falling off the railing regardless as the lab begins to erupt around them. Snake would rush to the exit as Mr. X emerged. Gone is his coat, which restrained his full power, but it wouldn't make much of a difference. He's not hundreds of times stronger than he was before. Snake wouldn't even need the rocket launcher from Ada, but it wouldn't hurt if he had convinced her to help, like I said. The true ending plays out the same. Bullets and a spear keeps Birkin's final form at bay long enough for the train to detach as Birkin, the G-Virus sample, and the rest of Raccoon City are wiped away. The bottom line is, even with just his skills and experiences accounted for, Snake is much more akin to a legendary soldier, and he really would just come across as this super overpowered, unstoppable force if put in Leon's shoes. The situation would mostly play out the same if Snake had to face maybe someone like Nemesis, for example, another monster that was roaming around Raccoon City at this time. It took a less than nuclear bomb to just wipe away everything in Raccoon City, whereas Snake can just fist fight and defeat people who are necessarily stronger than nukes, as ridiculous as that maybe sounds. Like I said, I have an entire video all about Solid Snake that breaks down literally everything you could ever want to know about the character's abilities, and subscribe to see more Resident Evil content in the near future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.